Hi, Room 5. Welcome back to the understory layer of the rainforest. So yesterday we worked on the forest floor, and today we are moving up in the rainforest. Obviously, we learned yesterday that the rainforest is a very tall and beautiful place. It stretches all the way up to the sky, which is that top emergent layer. We started yesterday by learning about animals and a lot of the dead, rotting nature that's on that forest floor. Now we're moving up into the understory. The understory is 0 to 60 feet. So again, this is where measurement is so important when we talk about it. We actually give a measure to it. So remember, the forest floor was 0 feet because that's the very bottom. Now we're talking 60 of these rulers stacked on top of each other. So I'm about 5 feet 8 inches. So you have to imagine I'm only about 5 feet. This goes up to 60 feet. So that's very, very tall. And we're going to read about what animals and what plants live in the understory. So the understory looks like this. If you're reading along with us, you might want to pause this video, go and get your animal report or your rainforest report, okay? If not, you can set up your piece of paper just like me to take notes. If not, you can just listen along, okay? There's lots of different options. The understory layer of the rainforest is very hot, damp, and dark. Well, that sounds just like the forest floor, right? It is under the leaves of the canopy, but over the ground of the forest floor. Very little sunlight can reach this layer. Shorter plants with large leaves to soak up the sun grow here. Some of the plants in this layer rely on insects for food. Other plants here will latch on and grow off other plants. A large variety of flowers, mosses, lichens, orchids, ferns, and vines can be found in the understory. So these plants are very different than the ones that we read about on the forest floor. These ones, it said, are short and they have large leaves. Now you have to remember, leaves suck up the sun. That's the whole point of a leaf. It's to spread out kind of like a beach towel at the beach and say, get all of the sunlight that you can. So it makes sense that if there's not a lot of sunlight, these plants in this understory are going to want the largest leaves possible because they're going to want to grab at any sunlight they possibly can, okay? It also says that these plants rely on insects for food. So it's probably going to be some of those carnivorous plants that we studied back when we were studying the desert. A lot of Venus flytraps, those plants that actually can eat insects. And then it says other plants will latch on and grow on to other plants. I'm thinking a lot of vines. That's in my head what I think of are vines, okay? So let's make some notes about plants. You have to remember, it goes plants, animals, which is really strange because on our note-taking guide, it goes animals, plants, okay? So we have to kind of switch it. So let's see, I'm going to put shorter, that means a note, right? That means I don't have to use the uppercase because I'm not writing sentences. I'm just taking notes. And again, I'm taking actual words from the reading because this is nonfiction. So I'm going to say shorter plants with large leaves. And you can always pause this. Shorter plants with large leaves. Okay. The next one that I thought was interesting was plants latch on to others. Okay, you see that? Plants latch onto others. And then I'm going to give a couple examples. Remember, when we give a couple examples, we don't write all of them. We pick two that maybe we've heard of, or we pick two that we find interesting. Now, you might have thought something else was interesting that you wanted to write down. That's totally okay. You might have thought it was interesting, the sentence that said, some of the plants rely on insects for food. You could write that down. And that's the best thing about taking notes, is we kind of can write down what sparks our interest. So I'm going to pick two. I'm going to pick ferns, and let's see, I'm going to have to tip my phone down. Ferns and vines. And I think I'm actually going to add flowers also. Okay, ferns, vines, and flowers. So you can pause that if you need it. And remember, you only can write things that are in here. So you can't say, oh, well, I watched a show once and I saw a plant that had red spots. I'm going to write my red spot plant. It doesn't work that way. When you're doing nonfiction research, you have to use the words right from here. Okay, so now let's go on to the animals. That's the fun part for most of us, right? Many of the animals here cross over between the understory and the canopy. So the canopy is actually up higher. It's our next level. So a lot of these animals go from the understory up, down, like an elevator. Monkeys and leafcutter ants, for example, travel through the understory as they make their way from the canopy to the forest floor. Nocturnal animals like bats and owls make their homes in this layer. Some other animals in the understory are jaguars, leopards, sloths, red-eyed tree frogs, birds, butterflies, snakes, and lizards. And this little box down here says, jaguars can be seen lying in the low branches of the understory. So this is where I feel like a lot of our big animals live. And it's kind of neat because it said a lot of nocturnal animals like to live here. Remember, nocturnal means they're awake at night. Well, the thing is, you're not getting a lot of sunlight in here. So, whereas if they lived in an area where we are, like say in Concord, we have sunlight all day and then it gets dark at night. Well, if they're living here in the understory, it's dark a lot longer because there's barely any light showing through. So that's actually really advantageous for them to make their homes here. So let's see. We need to say a lot of animals cross over. I think that's important to know, that a lot of these animals don't just live in the understory. So we can say animals, we can say they, because this is under animal notes. They cross over. Okay, and that means, we know that means crossing over means they go from one level to the next. Let's see, I'm going to put nocturnal animals. Now, if I just walked up to you and said nocturnal animals, you would think I was crazy. You would say, Mrs. Mickey, what are you talking about, nocturnal animals? Well, on a note-taking guide, writing just nocturnal animals makes sense Because if your mom or dad came in right now and asked you, why did you write nocturnal animals? Well, you could say, oh, because these are my animal notes about the understory. So nocturnal animals are the types of animals that live in the understory. So because this is a note-taking guide, we have the information on here that we need to explain it. If you were writing a sentence and you just wrote nocturnal animals, Mrs. McGee would not like that very much. You would need to turn it into a sentence saying nocturnal animals live in the understory of the rainforest. But the neat thing about note-taking guides is we just write down those words or phrases that we are pulling out that information from. Now I get to give some examples. Ooh, this is my favorite part. Jaguars. So that's one of the big cats. Sloths. Snakes. Now, could you write more? Of course you could write more. But I only have room for 3 on mine, okay? And that brings us to the end of our understory notes. So if you filled that all out today, you're looking good, and you can join us back tomorrow. Tomorrow we get to do the canopy. That'll be really exciting. And then, of course, after we take our notes, we will do some different drawings of different animals, which is the fun part. I know you guys love that. But like always, we have to know what we're talking about before we start doing that. All right, so I love you and I miss you guys, and thanks for learning about the rainforest with me. There's no place like home.